Welcome to Forensic Friday.
Where we examine the intersection of true crime, psychology, and the heart of being human in the middle of it all. Hi, buddy.
Hello.
You're so pregnant.
Oh my gosh. Emotionally, everything. It's all coming out.
It's all coming out.
I'm a mess
You've done
all the
really well.
time.
You've done really well.
Up till now, I think.
Girl, you you're getting there.
Yeah.
Okay, I am counting down with you. Because you're struggling.
Terrified.
You're gonna be just fine. You're gonna be so ready to have that baby. It's not even gonna freak you out.
I know. I'm just terrified of a lot of things, but it's fine. It's fine.
It's fine.
I have
Everything's
milk.
scary. You know what? That's a great segue into today's episode because I'm going to give you something to be real scared of today.
Perfect.
Yeah, this will be great. It'll bust you out of your pregnancy fear.
Other than childbirth and raising a human?
I think this is scarier than that. I think
Okay,
this human
perfect.
is scarier than that.
Oh, that's fair.
Also, I think here's God's plan. We're so uncomfortable at the end that it overrides the fear. I was so ready to get that baby out of me at the end. I was like, I don't care how they get here.
Mhm.
It just needs to happen.
Yes, I think so too. Sorry, Gare. My mom just tried to call.
Her mom's coming home organized.
I don't know if Gare can hear when my computer rings.
I don't think he can normally.
Okay. Ooh, do I want Starbucks?
Of course, you always want Starbucks.
What do I want?
What if you get that thing that you get with Megan? You guys get the same thing. It's like a little bit sweet, but it's cold coffee,
Oh,
something.
cold brew. Mm,
Or do you want something warm?
I think I want something warm. I don't know. I think I'll do a tall, sugar-free vanilla latte.
Yum. The minute you said tall sugar free, I knew what you were ordering.
It's so good.
It is
I'm so
good.
basic. Anyway,
Okay, let
I'm
me scare you.
I'm excited for this scary story.
I got you. Okay, we are going to talk today about the Fox Hollow murders. There's a documentary on Netflix, but there's also a ton of information. So I didn't just go through the documentary. I dug in a little, and when I started it, the town looked super familiar. And I was like, this is weird. Why does this look familiar? And granted, it's Midwest, and the Midwest, there's not a ton of I mean, there are different kinds of houses in the Midwest, but this part of Indiana, it
Mhm.
definitely just like a lot of it looks like this.
Yeah.
Big lots, you know, pretty houses. And I was like, this feels like where my cousin got married, like somewhere around here. So I
Hmm.
texted my cousin, who's a fire chief in Indianapolis, and
Okay.
he was like, "Oh, we should talk about this." He goes, "That's not like super close to us, but it's close to Carmel, which we're familiar with. We have some family there." So anyway,
Okay.
he definitely like knew a little bit about this, which is so interesting.
That's
And they were
exciting.
watching it like that day. He and his wife were watching it.
So you're saying watching it documentary.
They were watching the documentary.
Okay.
Yes. And I was like, this looks familiar. And he's like, yeah, it's not like terribly far from us. So
What streaming platform is it on?
Netflix. It's on Netflix.
How have
It's
I not heard of this?
it's terrifying. I'm going to tell you why it's so scary. This is one of those things, Nat, that it takes a lot to really spook me.
Hmm.
I was shook by this whole thing. It's so creepy. It's
Hmm.
giving Dahmer, but got away with it. It's not good. And it's like Dahmer times 1,000. And it's weird that people
Okay.
don't know about it.
Okay. I think it's on Hulu.
Oh, maybe it's Hulu. This should have been in textbooks. Like this case, I should have heard about this in my PCLR training. Like this, I don't know how nobody knows about this until now.
Okay.
Well, I kind of do, but and I have theories. Oh, we're gonna get into it. Okay.
All the things.
Oh my gosh, I know. And my notes are all over, so I'm going to do my very best. But I literally wrote it in a notebook, Nat, because I got so stressed out that I couldn't even type. I was like transfixed. So I had to pull out like a paper and pen situation.
Oh
So I'm going to
no.
do my best. Okay. So where Fox Hollow is, it's Fox Hollow Farm. already creepy. Conservative town slash housing development in Indianapolis. It's a low crime
Okay.
area. Everything kind of shuts down at that point in Indianapolis and in this area. Everything would kind of shut down. This was like September of 93 is when this whole thing
Okay.
kicks off. Okay.
Yeah.
Everything in the city kind of closes at 5 p.m. except for the gay clubs. Those would stay
Okay.
open and be open kind of all night. It was one of the only things in the city that was going.
Okay.
Hmm.
Interesting.
So around the same time, you've got people going out at night to the gay clubs. The AIDS crisis starts going on, and men start going missing from this community.
Hmm. Yeah, this feels Dahmery.
It's so Dahmery, but worse in some ways.
Oh
I
no.
know, I know.
Dahmer's insane.
Uh-huh. Yep. Okay, so as men are going missing, and in the gay clubs, there starts to be like flyers on pillars in the clubs and stuff saying this, this person's missing, this person's missing. It's not a small amount of people, and it keeps happening. And so they're going, this can't be AIDS, but they didn't know as much about AIDS as they do now.
Hmm.
They were thinking maybe people are just getting sick and dying. But then when people would report them missing, the community felt like police weren't prioritizing investigating this because the city and the town, these aren't our people. These are
Right.
the people that are out there in the middle of the night, whatever, right?
Right.
Okay. The men that went missing were typically around the same age, kind of middle-aged men, and all of the bars were in the same area. Many of the missing were kind of on the fringes of society, so maybe, homeless, maybe whatever. But also many
Hmm.
had been disowned by their families for being gay.
Mm.
So it's one of the reasons that this community of people kind of came together and they were pretty tight and they kind of knew
Yeah.
each other, right?
Yep.
Which is true, I think, everywhere.
Hmm.
So they start to realize something might be going on. And there's a couple of investigators who took an interest in this case, and I'm so happy that they did. It took a while, which I'll get to.
Okay.
During this time when people are going missing, Mark Goodyear,
Hmm.
who I just showed you for 2 seconds,
Yeah, he's terrifying looking.
he's so scary looking, older gentleman now,
Yes.
right?
Oh, I wonder what
And
he looked like when he was younger. Let me look. Keep talking.
yeah, it's hard to imagine not scary because now I am terrified of him. But anyway, Mark Goodyear comes forward, and here's Mark Goodyear's story. His story is that he went home with someone
Okay.
and they were messing around and doing erotic asphyxiation.
Okay. And we're talking about he went home with someone like another man.
Another man. Yep, someone that he
Okay.
met at the bar.
Also, really quick, him younger is also very um I almost said insulting,
I'm offended by
but
his
that's a
younger.
little rude.
I know.
Um, yeah, he's still offensive looking.
Yeah, there is just something about his face.
Yeah. It's
Sorry,
like a,
not sorry, Mark Goodyear. You look real scary.
I know,
Just baseline.
it's like Steve from one of our previous episodes.
Yeah, I mean, it kind of is a little bit like that, you
You
know?
know, it's just like, ugh.
Oh,
Anyway,
something's
continue.
going on there. Yeah. Okay, so, but as far as we know at this point, okay, he comes forward and he shares his story, which is they were messing around. Um, this man
Hmm.
was really into this erotic asphyxiation. The victim declined that. So Mark Goodyear was like, I want no part of that. Then the
Hmm.
perpetrator came up behind him
Okay.
with like a hose for the pool and tried to put it around him. And he kind of pushed him back and whatever. Now, also, what Mark Goodyear told police is that he was given a drink and he poured it out in the bathroom and rinsed the glass because he just had a bad feeling because of how this all was happening.
Well, good for him.
Good for him, right? So the
Yeah.
police are like, "Oh my gosh, like where did this happen? Blah blah blah." Well, Mark Goodyear couldn't find where he was. couldn't recall because he went home with this person. You know, if somebody drives you back to their house, you don't always know where
Yeah.
you are.
Yeah.
So he didn't know exactly where it was, or so he said, right?
Okay.
He said that he saw him. He didn't know the guy's real name,
Okay.
and he thought he had a license plate, which they investigated and didn't get a hit on the plates. So nothing really comes of this. The other
Okay.
thing is, in the clubs at the time that made this really confusing, a lot of the men didn't use their real names
Mm.
because they
Yeah.
were afraid of being identified.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Makes total sense.
Yeah.
So he may have been given, a certain name, and it may have been literally nobody, just a made up name.
Yeah. And just to be clear, so it's Mark Goodwin who's saying all this stuff about the other guy.
Mark Goodyear is saying this
Good
happened to him.
Goodyear. Okay, got it.
Mark Goodyear is saying this happened to
I just want to
him.
make it really clear
Yes.
because I think the roles reverse later.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean,
I mean, that's my guess.
you guys, it's so insane. I don't even know. I mean, I have theories, but anyway. Okay. So, meanwhile, there's a man named Herb
Yeah.
Bauermeister.
Hmm.
Okay. He's married with 2 kids. He goes to church, fairly respected. He was the owner of Save a Lot secondhand stores.
Okay.
And at one point, investigators talked to him because they were talking to all kinds of people who went to the bars. And somebody was like, I think I've seen this guy. And he got real anxious
Hmm.
and denied everything. And he was using aliases at the club because he had this kind of double life going on.
Okay.
Okay. So this double life's going on. So,
Which I bet is pretty common
yes,
at this point.
couple interesting things about Herb and his Save a Lot stores.
Okay.
He had a fixation with mannequins.
Why am I not surprised at all?
I can see them in my face. In my face. I can see them in my head, even now from watching the documentary, but mannequins
Oh
everywhere.
no.
So he's Save a Lot. He's got a place that has clothes and stuff, right? So,
Okay.
okay.
So obviously gets mannequins, but he's also like low-key obsessed.
Well, the problem is they're everywhere and you can't move. There's so many, you can't move them. They're in the bathroom. So many naked mannequins.
That's so weird.
So many that they couldn't use the bathroom. They were all log jammed in the hallway. And people would ask, like, hey, Herb, can we move the mannequins? He's like, no, blah, blah, blah. They got to keep the mannequins. Never got rid of a mannequin. Never met a
Weird.
mannequin he didn't like.
Weird.
Okay, so urban is mannequins. Okay.
Okay.
So I'm going to back up and give you a little bit of history on Herb, and then I'm going to come back.
Okay.
Okay. So Herb grew up kind of in the Carmel area of Indianapolis, which again is where we have some family out there.
Yeah.
He was just a weird dude, and they actually nicknamed him Weird Herb. That was his nickname. Weird Herb.
Sweet.
Yes. It's interesting because one time he was like on the news or somebody I think it was like a news story. He found a dead raccoon that had been like run over. And there was a street striping crew, like, painting the lines on and it went right over the raccoon. So the line went over the raccoon. And he
That's really
was
funny.
so upset that somebody would treat this animal like it just didn't matter, right? Like
Interesting.
incensed and
Okay.
had lots of opinions about it. And I think he buried the raccoon. I think he took it and buried it, if I remember right. So
Well,
keep that in mind.
cares for animals.
Cares for animals, apparently. So Herb, oldest of 4 kids. His dad was an anesthesiologist. His
Okay.
mom was a socialite. He went to Indiana University. He flunked out multiple times. In
Hmm.
1971, he married his wife. So he's married at this point, hence the double life, right?
Okay. Yep.
As he established his business, there wasn't a ton about his growing up, but as he established his business, at one point, he was making $300,000 a year.
Oh, dang. In the 70s?
In the 90s.
Oh, still.
From his Save-A-Lot stores. He was making 300,000 a year. His family
Yeah.
looks like this perfect, normal little family.
Okay.
At one point in his earlier adulthood, I think before he got married, might have been after, but I think it was before, he was committed for 50 days by his dad. And nobody really knows the whole story there.
Committed.
Committed,
Oh,
like
to
for mental health,
yeah, got
this
it.
or that, right?
Okay, okay. By his dad.
By his dad.
Okay.
So a couple of the weird behaviors. So we have the mannequins, right? He had a skeleton hanging on the back of his office door at the store,
Mhm.
kind of a skeleton or whatever. At
Okay.
one point, he put rotting food in a file drawer and found it interesting. So he put like,
Go back to the skeleton. Was it a picture of a skeleton or was it like a
it was a
mannequin
skeleton, but
skeleton?
not like a real skeleton. It was like a
Like a Halloween one.
like Halloween or even medical, because he tries to say at various points that he's fascinated by things because his dad was a doctor. His dad was an anesthesiologist,
Oh,
right?
okay,
But
okay.
it's a legit, they show it in the documentary. It's like a skeleton just hanging on the back of the door
Okay. Not
year
like a
round.
post, not like a poster, just a
Oh,
regular.
no, no, like bones.
Got it, got it,
Bones.
got it.
All the
And
bones.
then the rotten food is really
Yeah.
disgusting.
Nothing in there except vintage clothes and rotting food, mannequins, and skeletons.
Gross.
Yeah, it's gross. So I'm not going to share that yet. Okay. So that's what's happening in his life when the investigators come. So he's running
Okay.
his stores, he's got mannequins everywhere, all this kind of stuff's going on. So as he's getting investigated as a potential suspect,
Hmm.
his wife, Julie, becomes suspicious and starts the divorce process
Of his double life.
of him as a human.
Okay.
And she points to a couple of things all of a sudden that come back to her brain. I don't know.
Like the
I
rotting food.
I would have reported these things when they happened, but she didn't. So
Hmm.
in 1994, their son found a skull in the woods and brought it on a stick to show his mom. A skull.
Their son?
Mhm. Their son's playing because there's forest, so it's Fox Hollow Farm, hence the
Hmm.
creepy.
Hmm. Hmm.
Behind this big house, this big brick mansion, beautiful house,
Yeah.
it's like woods.
Okay.
Okay. So their son was out playing in the woods, comes back with a skull on a stick to show his mom. Okay.
Hmm.
She tells Herb, and he told her, don't call the police. So she didn't report it. Herb told her the skull was from his father, anesthesiologist, who attended medical school, and that the animal must have dragged the skull from the garage to the woods. So it was a real
What?
skull, real skull.
Right, right, right.
Hmm. But he's saying, yeah, I had some in the garage from dad, and an animal must have taken it out to the woods.
Oh my gosh.
Can you imagine being his wife? I would be like, you, sir, are a serial killer. Remain
Yeah.
at gunpoint until the police arrive. Thank you very much.
Yes, this is insane.
This chick didn't do that. Did not do that. So
Okay.
one of my questions is, what do you think was up with the wife? And why would you not do something if your son walked in with a skull from the backyard? A
On a stick.
human skull from the backyard.
Yeah. Well, sadly, the first thing that came to my mind is that he makes a lot of money.
I know that's the first thing I thought too.
And so, she's probably like, okay. I mean, I don't know if she was like, well, if I do this, then, I
Hmm.
don't know if it was that calculated, but I think part of it is like you're married and
Hmm.
you kind of want to believe it.
Well, sure, and it's plausible. I don't know if Julie never went in the garage. Like if there's a skull in the garage, you would think Julie would have seen it, but it's a different
Right.
time. Maybe she maybe she never went in her garage.
Yeah. And this was the 90s. So,
Hmm.
yeah, I think, but they're an older couple. So sometimes like the loyalty just runs differently,
Hmm.
but from older couples, you know?
Yeah. And I think she was putting pieces together from 94 to 96 when she divorced him. That's what I think happened.
Well, yeah, but we're not there, right? Was the skull found in 94?
94. So
Okay.
96 is when they're starting to investigate, right? Because men are going
Okay.
missing. 94 is when her son found the skull, but she didn't tell anybody.
Right. Yeah. I don't think she told anyone because of
Mm-mm.
maybe a loyalty thing, the fact that they have a kid or
Yeah,
maybe, a family. And if he's the moneymaker, like that's a life you're giving up.
totally. But I would 100% tell somebody. I
Oh,
just, I got
yeah.
no patience for this, but whatever. But I also make money.
No.
I got a job and, it's a different time. If you're a two-income household, it's a lot different than being a one-income household too,
Yes.
you know?
Well, yes. And I feel like we have a lot more information now than we did back then.
Oh, yes. And she might
You
have been
know?
scared of him. That's the other thing I think.
Yeah.
It is possible
She
that
was
there was
scared.
some domestic violence or something going on and she was afraid.
Yeah. Some level of intimidation.
Yeah. So
Mhm.
so we're going to jump back to 96 when
Okay.
he had the conversation with police. He gets really nervous. His wife's real suspicious. She starts the divorce process. She talks to her attorney who told the police these
Hmm.
things that had happened in the past. So the authorities talk to the wife, Julie, and she
Hmm.
leads them to a site to where the skull was found in 1994.
Okay.
Okay. Authorities see burnt human bone fragments.
Of course they do.
Yep. So they tag in a forensic anthropologist who comes in and he starts making grids. And everywhere that he finds a bone or a bone fragment, he puts a flag. You can see it in the documentary, but it is
Oh
a
no.
sea of flags.
Oh no. I'm gonna have to
Flags
watch this.
everywhere.
Should I watch this like next weekend? I probably shouldn't watch it this week.
Don't watch it this week.
Okay.
Mm-mm. I mean, you
Like
can't.
is it like nightmare status?
Um, we'll see how you feel about it at the end.
Okay.
Okay, so many flags. So many flags. They found handcuffs with an arm bone attached.
Oh no.
Oh, arm bone sticking through some
Oh
handcuffs.
no.
Just the
Oh no.
bone. Just the bone. Natalie, I'm
Ooh.
not okay. I'm unwell. And it gets
I'm
worse.
unwell.
We're
No
just getting
wonder
started
you
off.
felt unwell watching this documentary.
And I am one of those really weird true crime girlies, as are you, who can
Uh-huh.
go to bed hearing about weird things. It doesn't
Yeah.
bother me that much. There's a few exceptions, but this nonsense should not have watched this at 11 o'clock at night. This was stupid.
Yes. Did you watch this with Gare?
No. Well, Gare was with me, but Gare was doing something else. I think he was listening to something on his phone. He wasn't like in it.
I was gonna say this might be why he's sick. I'm kidding.
Well, he came in a couple times. And he's like, "What are you watching?" And I was like,
Mhm.
and then he just stayed because I was watching it so late. He got in bed and he was just like, "Oh my God,
Well,
you're a
I will
lot."
say yesterday during my meltdown,
Yeah.
I was watching a few different shorter documentaries,
Hmm.
and Preston was like, "You are literally sitting here crying, and there is a mass shooting going on in the background as
Yep.
you're sitting here."
But you know what? Here's the thing.
I was like, "I don't want anything happy. Why would I want anything
I
happy?"
don't want anything happy, and also I've got a problem to solve. My
Yeah,
brain is a heat-seeking missile. I want to
yeah,
solve puzzles. This is where we're at.
yes. And I want to hear
I
more
can't
about.
explain it.
No,
I can't explain it.
I was
You
like,
know?
I'm either gonna listen to nothing or something kind of creepy.
Yeah. Oh, 100%.
So
Okay.
anyway,
They find thousands of remains.
mm,
Now, a remains is any part of something. Okay, so they're
right,
finding all kinds of things. Ankle bones, arms, jaws, all kinds of things. Okay.
fingers, yeah, whatever. Mhm.
Fingers, just like random stuff in the grid from all these from
Ugh.
thousands. There's thousands of pieces of people. That's such
Okay,
a weird way to say that, but thousands of pieces of human remains.
yeah,
Yes. There's three main areas around the house where they're finding remains.
okay,
Okay. Behind the house, it was mostly burned remains. So that's where the forest was. Okay.
okay,
Mostly the stuff they're finding back there is burned. There
Okay.
was a second area with burned bones, kind of like off to the side. And then there was a third area where the remains were not burned. No skulls were found,
Oh no.
which they thought was odd.
That's super weird, but just a
Uh-huh.
bunch of other bones.
Yep. So then they go down to a creek bed on
Mm-hmm.
the property. Okay, so
Mm-hmm.
now they're back in the woods and there's a creek bed. There's thousands of remains there too, the length of the creek. So the
Oh,
entire bed of the creek is bones.
gross.
I'm so weirded out still talking about it. Mhm. They did find some jaw bones intact, but mostly the bones that they were finding were a little bit more put together in this creek bed than it was in the burn piles. Okay.
Okay.
So they're like, Herb, a word, right? They're trying to find him now. Okay.
What is happening,
Yeah.
sir?
Okay. So Herb decided I'm going to take my son up to a lake cabin.
Oh no.
Everybody's freaking out. There's an emergency temporary protective order, but they didn't bring him in.
What?
They take the kid. So the
Okay.
police go out, they get the kiddo.
Okay.
She was able to get this emergency protection order, but they don't bring Herb in. They don't bring him in.
After finding all these dead
After
bodies?
finding, I mean, I I don't even know. I think I have it somewhere in my notes, but thousands and thousands and thousands of remains
Yeah,
on his property.
that's insane.
And knowing that his son found a school 2 years earlier
Right.
and that his wife's suspicious, they don't even bring him in for questioning because they didn't have enough information. They had manpower issues, so they felt like they didn't have enough people and they
Hmm.
wanted to keep surveillance on him. And they didn't really consider him a flight risk. Well, then they can't find him.
Oh
And
no. Well,
he is the
yeah.
only suspect. He is the only suspect in all of this nonsense, right?
Right.
So 6 days after they start really looking for him. So when they finally got their ducks in a row, got a warrant, decided to go get him.
Hmm.
6 days after that, he killed himself in Canada. Self-inflicted gunshot wound.
Mm-hmm.
And there were videotapes in the car. Like the person who found him noticed there were videotapes in the car. When the investigators got there, they were gone.
What?
Mhm.
Oh, that's weird.
Very weird. So the investigators said Herb took his secrets with him, and authorities thought there wouldn't be prosecution. So the case hit a standstill, right? Because they're not going
Mhm.
to prosecute a dead man.
So really quick. So someone found him in the car.
Hmm.
Tapes were there.
Yep.
He was dead though with the tapes in the car.
He was dead with the tapes in the car.
And then the
By the time
police.
investigators got there, the tapes were gone.
Okay. Okay.
Mhm. He did leave a suicide note.
Okay.
It talked about business issues and some other stuff, but
Hmm.
no apologies for anything, no information about any of the remains or anything that might have happened. Nothing.
Okay. Okay.
Okay. They start
That's
finding,
so frustrating.
well, what they start to find out is they go to the house and they're like, this is right before the case, before he killed himself. When they went to the house,
Okay.
there's mannequins around his pool dressed up. The pool area looks like a club.
Oh no.
And there's mannequins and it is big creepy. Like,
And the wife was still there?
yeah. So here's my question. How did the wife not know about the mannequins around the pool area? Because
Well,
remember,
she had to have known.
and he clearly had gentlemen callers, like he had people coming over because Goodyear
Hmm.
pops back up. There were things happening at this house. So how did this wife, she has two children in the home, not
Hmm.
notice the mannequins around the pool area?
I bet she did. Why do we think she didn't?
Because they're creepy AF. Why would you let there be mannequins dressed up around
Here's
your
the
pool?
thing. Here's the thing.
I'm gonna
And
send you a picture.
I don't know any, yes, send me a picture. I don't know anything about his wife, like of how she is, but mm, I don't know how to say this in a really kind way, so I'm gonna just say it and then we can see if we need to edit it out. Um, Weird finds weird.
That's true.
So my guess is she kind of saw past some of his like weird stuff
Uh-huh.
because she probably has her own weird stuff.
Or she's codependent.
Well, she's 1000% codependent. But what I'm saying though is like maybe we don't really know what her final straw was, but maybe the mannequins to her were like, you know what? He's got this weird fetish with mannequins and she saw past it.
Yeah.
Because there's no way she didn't see them around their own pool at their own house. There's no way.
Had to have. But having a child, I'm looking at this, it's very creepy. You'll have to see it in the documentary. But they're
Did
like
you send me a
dressed up
picture?
and it's like they're like like cigarette, like they're hanging out. Like I mean, it's just very weird.
Oh, yeah, I'm telling you. I think she just accepted this about him.
Maybe she did.
I don't know what else you would do.
It's just weird. And especially after the skull. That's when I really start to take issue with Julie, is I'm like, okay, there's a skull. I realize she's not a true crime girly because that wasn't a thing yet. Anybody I know would have been like, something
Well,
weird.
that
You're gone every night.
I
The
think that's the codependent part.
That's what I think too. And I do think we have to leave room. My DV brain gets buzzing a little bit. I
Uh-huh.
do think we have to leave room
For
that this
fear.
person may have even had control of different parts of the house.
Yeah.
Meaning, was she even allowed to go in the pool area? Maybe
Yeah.
not. Was she allowed to go certain places in the yard? You know what I mean? He may have
Right.
had his stuff kind of locked down.
I know, but a pool?
I don't know. It's weird, dude. Like when you see it, this is not a place kids were swimming. I just don't believe it. I don't
Okay.
believe for a minute kids were swimming. Men were having sex in the pool. I don't think kids were hanging out in this
Swimming.
pool.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
just don't get
Yeah.
it's like dark and creepy down there. I just don't.
Is there a picture?
Yeah, you've got to see it in the thing. It's like the hair stood up on the back of my neck. Like it's creepy. They gather up all the remains, right?
Mm-hmm.
Herb's killed himself. The investigation kind of dies down, but they gather up all of the remains,
Mm-hmm.
10,000 bones and bone fragments. 10,000. And they take them to the University of Indianapolis to like
Okay.
house the bones. We got to put them somewhere, right? I mean, we can't just leave all these bones in somebody's backyard. So they
Yeah.
dig them all up, and this is the second largest finding of human remains in US history. What do you think is the first?
I have no idea.
9/11. Number 2, Herb's
Oh,
backyard.
that's crazy.
That's great.
I wouldn't have even considered that because they're so separate.
Think about all the crap that has happened in our history. It is 9/11 and then Herb's backyard.
That's crazy.
That just tells you the scale of this. Like, I
Yes.
cannot
Yeah.
say enough. He killed
So many people.
so many people, or so many people died and were dispersed there. We'll never know exactly what Herb did because he's dead,
Right.
right? So they find it's really interesting. There's this man who found a job on Craigslist. Okay.
Okay.
And this is kind of towards the beginning of the documentary. And his name, Eric Pragner. So in the beginning of the documentary, Eric Pragner talks about how in the summer of 2023, he was working in a mortuary and he is working with the coroner. So the coroner in this case, Coroner Jellison, is the person who kept moving it forward. So it's not usually a coroner who gets
Hmm.
super interested, it's usually a detective. But in this case, the coroner was so overwhelmed with all of these remains and all of these families that don't know what happened to their person.
Mm,
So this
that's
one dude gets a job on Craigslist and he's doing transport for the mortuary. And
okay.
he hears of a cold case and he starts getting interested because his cousin, Alan Livingston, went missing in 93.
Hmm.
He was last seen getting into a vehicle in downtown Indianapolis.
Okay.
So they show the family in the documentary kind of talking about Alan Livingston, and he sounds like honestly a really special person.
Hmm.
And so this kind of gets the coroner going again. and we have better technology now, and we have the missing person database and all this like kind of stuff. So the coroner's like, we're gonna analyze. We need to analyze all of these remains. Okay.
Mhm.
So they decide they're gonna get after it. The authorities eventually decide we cannot spend all of this money and fund DNA testing. And they said the families are going to have to pay,
Mm.
which is really, I mean, that's just
That's
shitty.
wild.
It's
Yeah.
really shitty.
Yeah.
And the families couldn't afford to do that.
Mm.
Well, before they stopped analyzing, they found one match, one bone. It's
Who? Oh,
Alan
Alan.
Livingston, the family member, which actually brought them tremendous peace.
Mm.
Tremendous peace. So the coroner is really fighting for the people. I really like the coroner in this case. Like he just talked about having a moral and an ethical obligation, regardless of the victim,
Mm.
to bring peace to the families. But the authorities really were not helpful to him. They didn't want to help him solve all these cases and help bring closure to all of these families.
Right.
So then people start asking questions.
Mm.
How could he have handled that many dead bodies himself? Could he have had any accomplices?
Mm.
Thoughts?
Well, maybe because the freaking tapes went missing,
That's questionable, right? Also,
you
does
know?
anyone think 10,000 bone fragments is a lot of work for one person?
Yeah, unless you like have a ton of time, which he had a family, so
He had a family. Also,
hard to believe.
it is really hard to move a dead body. And that was
Mm-hmm.
one of the things that the Eric Pragner said was he was working for the coroner and he's
Mm-hmm.
transporting bodies. He's like, this is a lot of work. Bodies are heavy.
Hmm.
How could one person manage this many bodies?
Right.
Right? It's just not very reasonable.
Well, I think if he did have someone, they took the tapes
Yes.
because the tapes were there. He's dead, then they're not there. He's
It
still
it
dead.
it invites so many questions, doesn't
Yeah.
it?
Yeah.
Mark Goodyear pops his little head up again and
Mm-hmm.
he's like, maybe there's more of them.
Mm.
Oh, what a suggestion, Mark Goodyear. So the case still kind of takes a little bit of a standstill. The house gets sold finally. They sell the
Okay.
house. And the family that bought the farm had a priest and a shaman come
Oh my gosh.
bless and do whatever. There's not a force on this earth that would make it safe for me to live in that house. I can tell you right
No.
now. There's
No.
no way. And I'm not like into the paranormal. That's not my jam. I'm
But
not
also it's
in the house.
creepy as heck.
Oh, so creepy. I would never it's not
And
happening.
you just never know. You'll probably find some bone.
Oh, 100%. And there's still, 300 missing men in that they think may be tied to this case.
Oh my gosh.
And the other weird thing is there's this like website called murderauction.com
Mm-hmm.
where you can buy things. You can buy like Dahmer's glasses, you can buy, whatever. And I think they took some of the things from the house, like bought
Oh,
and resold some of the things from the house, which is just gross,
yeah, that's weird.
right? Very weird. Okay. They only ID'd 4 victims in 96, by the way. So that was the best they could do in 96. After Herb killed himself, they found like 4 victims. That was it. But they think
Okay.
there's, 300 or whatever.
Okay.
The homeowner, this is so insane. The homeowner in 2012, so buy the home, things die down a little bit, whatever. The
Mhm.
homeowner's still fascinated, completely fascinated with the case, which is also interesting and will come up later.
Yeah.
He buys this house, he's kind of into it. He starts participating in paranormal shows. So he's letting paranormal shows come kind of like check out the house. Okay.
Okay.
So there's this team of paranormal detectives. Okay.
Okay.
And it's it was called Paranormal Consequences. So they had this show called Paranormal Consequences. And they decided to do a film called Spirits versus Spirits.
Okay.
Okay. They tracked down Mark Goodyear. Oh, wait, no. Mark Goodyear called them.
Oh,
Mark Goodyear got word that they were doing this, and he
okay.
called the team and started
Okay.
talking. And he's talking. Okay.
Yeah.
He tells them he dated Herb for 2 years. He claimed he was never attacked and he made it up so that they would get a search warrant for the property, even though he
Okay, so
never
wait.
took them back to the property.
So Mark Goodyear dated
Herb,
Herb for 2 years, you said?
yes. Mark, someone attacked me Goodyear, was in a relationship with Herb for two
Okay.
years. And
Okay.
he claimed he was never attacked. He made it up and went to the police because he wanted them to get a search warrant for the property. The property that he knew where it was because he was dating the owner.
Oh, Mark Goodyear was the accomplice. He's the one
Oh,
helping him move bodies and
buckle
got
up,
the tapes.
buckle up.
Oh yeah.
So Mark Goodyear, weirdo that he is,
Hmm.
allegedly, didn't want his face on camera. So he won't show his face, but he walks them through the house. Mark Goodyear walks these paranormal detectives through the house. And Mark would just tell stories. He spoke in riddles, all this kind of stuff.
Guy's not.
The sheriff at the time that this happened, 2012, John Egloff, called the detectives and the paranormal detectives and said, "Hey, Mark Goodyear is dangerous, and we have reason to believe that he's stalked people before and stuff like this." Okay.
Okay.
So this became the Michael Jordan of cold cases for a while. So now it's hit, we've got streaming, we've got all this stuff, but for a little bit locally,
Hmm.
this was a huge cold case. So remember the one of the investigators who helped with the John Bonet case. His last name was Amesworth.
Hmm.
Not the main guy, but a different guy who's an excellent investigator. He gets involved.
Okay.
And Herb called someone before the suicide. So you have people working it from different angles. You've got the paranoid detectives who are talking directly to Goodyear. Then you have this investigator working with the coroner, and
Hmm.
they're going their own channels to investigate. And they find out that Herb called someone right before his suicide and
Hmm.
told them he was worried about his family. And he was worried that a man named Mark Goodyear was stalking him and his family, and he
Hmm.
would wake up and Mark was strangling him.
Hmm.
So he was afraid. He was afraid of Mark Goodyear. He
Okay.
didn't say that Mark was his boyfriend or anything, right? He didn't say that. But what he
Sure.
said was, I'm afraid of this man. I'm worried for my family. And he communicated that to someone before he killed himself. Okay.
Dang. Okay.
Mhm.
So
So,
it's like we got one crazy weirdo and he's scared of another crazy weirdo.
yes,
Yeah.
yes. Something had changed for Herb leading up to the suicide beyond just the investigation. He was afraid. The other thing that's interesting is Goodyear went on and on with the police initially about how this person, who we now believe is Herb because of what Goodyear has said,
Mhm.
he told the police all this stuff about the erotic asphyxiation. The problem
Mhm.
is everything he shared was not consistent with erotic asphyxiation. It's more consistent with intentional strangulation.
Oh,
And
dang.
you only know those things if you've seen it before. There are things about strangulation you don't know unless you've strangled someone.
Yep.
The investigators at the time didn't challenge him. They think he's a victim. They're not thinking about what he's saying, right? So Mark, meanwhile, the investigators are kind of zeroing in that the smart Goodyear person might have been harassing Herb. On the other side, Mark Goodyear is giving the paranoid detect or the paranormal paranoid paranormal detectives an unhinged house tour
Okay.
and showing them all these things and telling them all these things that he never told the police.
Hmm.
He said, and this is interesting to the paranormal detectives, that he had recently found God and he would take his shoes off before he went in the house because he called it holy ground.
Oh no.
And he talked about the property with a lot of affection.
Oh no.
Mhm. Then Mark starts saying things like he never contributed to the murders. He never contributed.
Okay.
Ainsworth, the detective,
Hmm.
starts getting footage from the paranormal detectives because they know they're investigating. They know there's people in and out of that house and all these things that are
Right.
happening, right?
Right.
And they start looking at some of the footage. And Ainsworth caught Mark Goodyear saying he was luring or enticing the victims to come to the property.
Huh.
Mm-hmm.
And this is on camera?
Yes. So
Mm.
then the investigators start thinking maybe Goodyear would kind of would lure people back to the house.
Okay.
And then maybe Herb killed them and then Goodyear helped him get rid of the remains. That was
Hmm.
like a working theory for a minute. One of the theories, there's a new current owner, Rob Graves, who's also a
Okay.
little strange, allegedly. Watch the documentary.
Okay.
He says the son, one theory is that the son actually saw a full skeleton
Hmm.
instead of just the skull that the mom talked about.
Oh no.
And it freaked Herb out, and he went and broke up all of the bones and created burn piles. And if you look at
Oh.
the house, there's burn piles around the house.
Hmm.
And also because it's very hard to drag a body alone,
Right.
maybe somebody was helping to kind of break things up.
Right.
Worst euphemism ever. So
Ooh.
obviously, Herb didn't kill Mark. So
Hmm.
why would Mark be the only survivor? No other survivors ever came up in this process. Why would Mark Goodyear be the only survivor? And why is he talking about it in such a showman kind of a way?
Because he was the mastermind.
It is kind of looking this way.
Yeah, he's the mastermind.
The
And
other
the
thing
other
is they
dude was just
found,
like along for the ride.
I think it's looking more and more like that.
Okay.
So they would find slip knots at the crime scene with the bones. What they
Okay.
suspect is that maybe they would walk them back there with shotguns, like tie them up, walk them back, and actually kill them with a gun.
Okay.
And someone would hold the person's arms so they didn't run, and they would shoot the person and then get rid of the body. And there's reasons why they think that.
I mean, they both might be like the masterminds, but I think Mark is more of the aggressor.
Hmm.
Like usually there's like with like duos, there's like one person who's a little bit more submissive,
Yep.
one person who's more aggressive. So I think Mark's the more aggressive one.
Mm.
And this was like a team effort, basically. But I think they're both bad. Like I don't think Herb is, just being manipulated. I think he's part of it, but just not as much of the brains behind everything.
Absolutely.
Because Mark is like getting off, basically like showing the house, touring weird
Yeah.
crap.
And we've worked with survivors of violence. They're not
Hmm.
usually like, let's go back to this house and walk through it together. This is
Yeah,
great.
and let me show you all the like weird things about it.
It's very, very strange.
Yes.
Very strange. So at this point in the documentary, Nat, they introduce Mark Goodyear,
Okay.
like to the cameras, like he's talking to the cameras.
Right, right, right. Like he does interviews
Oh my God.
because he's that ridiculous.
Yes.
Yeah.
And the paranormal, some of it's the paranormal detectives footage, and then I think some of it was for the documentary.
Okay.
But they spliced it together so it's a little hard to know what's what. But the
Okay.
opening is one of the women who spent a lot of time with him said he
Hmm.
would talk in riddles. Okay, here's the riddle. Not an accomplice, not a victim, never attacked. What am I? Your face.
Main guy.
You're the main guy, bro. I think you're the
You're the
main
main
guy.
guy.
You're the main
You are
guy.
you are Batman and he was your Robin.
Yes. One of the things that we find out is a little bit more about the relationship between Mark and Herb, according to Mark, of course, right? Because Herb's dead.
Right. Right.
Mark says in the documentary, basically, he killed 50 to 60 people.
Okay.
He claimed he met Herb in 1994 and he was staring at the missing person flyers. He said he was immediately into Herb. I think what Goodyear was saying was he kind of took charge and wanted to be with Herb. Herb took him back to the farm.
Mm-hmm.
Herb did cocaine, and Mark said that Herb never attacked him, barely touched his throat with the pool hose.
Mm.
He saw human forms in a fire, acted calm. They went to the pool. Basically, he says Mark drugged him, and Herb was out for like 40 minutes. And then Herb woke up and thought it was pretty hilarious that he'd been knocked out,
Oh my gosh.
and that Herb wanted to play games with strangulation. And then Mark described what that would look like, how it would look, because apparently Herb liked to be strangled.
Okay. Yeah. Okay.
Okay. So Mark said Herb didn't have a friend in the world. I had every opportunity to just kill him. I feel bad about that. That's Goodyear now, saying I could have killed him. I should have killed him, basically, right? Mark claimed that Herb would show him really graphic videos,
Okay.
said really horrible things and all this kind of stuff. And he suspects, Mark thinks some of these videotapes were taken of people who were killed. So he had videos of these encounters.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things that investigators found was there was a screw out of a vent, like above a pull-out couch. And they think that there might have been a camera up there. So now we know where some of the murders might have happened. It's possible.
Okay.
Mark makes the comment as he's talking about seeing these videos. He makes the comment, the man was clinically insane.
Oh
And
my God.
Julie said that Herb was a videographer. So now we're
Okay.
back to thinking, well, shit, did Herb actually record these things and show them to Mark? Because Herb was a videographer. It's his house. There's this pull-out couch. We got mannequins for days. That's an Herb thing, right?
Right. Right. It's an herb.
Mark said we were not in a relationship. Mark says that Herb stalked him.
Huh.
Uh-huh. So now
Doubt
my
that.
question is, okay, you and I have been working and in training to do LGBTQ domestic violence work.
Yeah.
And it's so good that it's a subspecialty. People have mixed opinions about that, but it's been good for me to learn a lot more about different dynamics.
Yeah.
And many, many, many same-sex couples treat each other very well and have good relationships.
Yes.
We're talking about a really sick dynamic between these two men. So
Right.
my question for you, Nat, is what do you think is going on in this relationship? Is this a domestic violence dynamic? Like, who's in control? Are there two psychopathic killers? Like, what if you had to just spitball what you think this is?
I think Mark is the psychopath, and I think there is power and control. I don't know about like overt abuse,
Yeah.
probably for the majority of it. I don't know, but I
Hmm.
think Mark has a lot of power and control.
Well, and Mark says he dominated Herb when he met him.
Yes. Yeah, so I think there are those dynamics, and I kind of think Mark might have had something more to do with his death.
I know. It does raise that question, doesn't it?
Like maybe he did, maybe it was really suicide, but maybe there was some manipulation there.
Absolutely. So when Mark says Herb stalked him,
Hmm.
Mark goes, I turned around and stalked him
Oh
from
my God.
bar to bar in the alleys. He would literally yell and tell people in the bars, go home. Don't be with Herb. Don't whatever. Like that was the whole. He's claiming,
Wow.
again, this is just Goodyear. We have no evidence that that actually happened.
Right.
But that lends some credence to what Herb said that Mark was stalking him.
Yeah, and he's scared of him.
Exactly. They were stalking each other.
Really quick, it's kind of so I was watching this TikTok the other day.
Yeah.
There's this comedian, and I actually laughed out loud. He was like, if someone ever breaks into your house, instead of acting scared, act excited.
That's hilarious.
And I feel like that's what Mark did. It's like Herb was stalking him, and then Mark was like, ooh, okay, game on, and then reversed it. And then Herb was
And
like,
then,
oh, shoot.
or the other way around, because what happened is Mark kind of dominated Herb to go to the house, but then what if he literally dominated a serial killer in action? And they
So
met
you're
each other and it was
saying,
like, ooh,
so you're saying Herb is the serial killer, and Mark found that intriguing?
yes,
Okay.
potentially. Okay, well, Mark admits, or Herb took Mark home to his house, but Mark
Right.
initiated them going home together. And Mark says that straight up. Like,
Right.
we were looking at the missing person posters, we caught eyes, and I
Yeah.
dominated him and went home with him.
So your theory, and I mean, granted, you've watched the thing, I haven't.
I have no idea. I have literally
Okay.
no idea. But I'm thinking, what if Herb liked dominant men, would have these interactions with men, but
Uh-huh.
then flip the script and kill him? But when he had Mark, he got a little bit more than he could handle.
Well, and maybe Mark got like kind of similar to what I was saying, but like you said, a reverse. Like
Yeah.
Mark saw what he was doing and then was like, "Ooh, this is fun and exciting," and it threw Herb off.
I think that really might have happened.
That could
I
be it.
really do.
Okay.
So I really don't know. I mean, I don't have like a clinical workup of this because it's so nuts. It's out of
Right.
anything I've ever seen or heard before,
Right.
but it's interesting to think about. So people start asking consistently with Mark now in these documentaries, why did you stay with him?
Right.
He goes, I talked to the police all the time, even when Herb was in the house. And Herb would tell me no one will believe you. Mark
Huh.
said for 2 years, Herb stalked him and claims the police told him to leave him alone and that he's a family man. So when Mark called to complain about Herb, that the
Hmm.
police told Mark, just leave him alone. He's a family man. He's not stalking you. Just kind of blew it off.
Right.
Hmm. Also, Mark claims that when they started investigating the house, okay, when police were investigating the house and the anthropologist was there and they're finding bones everywhere.
Uh-huh.
Mark said Herb came over and they were watching the news footage on the couch together. And
Huh.
Herb was yelling about the news trucks. There was a gun on the coffee table, and Mark thought he was going to kill him. And Mark said he was worried that Herb thought he informed on him, but he
Hmm.
already told him he was stalking the police all the time.
Right.
So Mark's like, why would he want to kill me now? He knows I've been talking to the police this whole time. None of that
Right.
makes sense, right?
Yeah.
Police weren't tracking Herb's whereabouts, so we don't have any surveillance to prove whether or not they were together watching the news or whatever.
Okay.
And Mark, quote, won't discuss the box that Herb brought over that day.
Hmm.
And remember, the Canadian police found his car with videotapes in the back seat in a box.
Right. Right.
And by the time investigators get there, there's no tapes.
Yeah.
Also, it should be noted that the scene of his death, Herb's death, looked suspicious.
Hmm.
There was a suicide note that didn't mention his property or anything else.
I'm telling you, Mark did it.
Uh-huh.
Mark did the thing.
But guess who's saying that the scene was suspicious?
Mark.
Mark.
It doesn't matter. He's involving himself. We know every criminal involves themselves in the thing.
Well, what Mark said is he was going to take me down with him, but he's dead. There's no way he could have pulled the trigger.
No way Mark could have pulled the trigger
No way Herb could have pulled the trigger
on Mark or himself.
on himself. Mark is the one saying, I don't think Herb killed himself.
Okay, I know, but he's just trying to throw people off.
The projection is wild in this case because I think
Yes.
Mark, in his sick, twisty brain, allegedly, because he's
Yeah.
still alive and has not been convicted of anything.
Oh, okay, okay.
My working theory, total guess,
Hmm.
I think he's projecting all the things that he did.
Yes.
Hmm. So let me tell you one last piece, and then we're going to
Okay.
talk about final thoughts. In
Okay.
1997, a whole new witness, right, popped up in 1997. His name
Okay.
was Leroy Bray.
Okay.
There were a couple of men who were hanging out with Mark and Herb at
Mm-hmm.
times. Okay. Because remember, this small community, right?
Mm-hmm.
So Leroy witnessed a young man murdered while he was being held by the arm by Mark Goodyear.
Okay.
Okay. Rick Rodney, who went by Dog, was
Mm-hmm.
also involved. And then
Okay.
there was a man, Danny, also involved, who was a covert drug dealer. And I think that's who they killed was the drug dealer.
Okay.
Uh-huh. The investigators told the filmmakers, because again, a lot of this is coming out when they were doing all of these filmings, and they're going back through this material and they're asking Mark about this old situation,
Mm-hmm.
right? The investigators were kind of telling them how to approach it. Well,
Mm-hmm.
Leroy described the house in detail and clearly was there.
Interesting.
Leroy said the man that they shot was handcuffed and Mark Goodyear was holding his arm.
Okay.
Mark gets pissed when they ask about this. And he asked, well, why wasn't he arrested then? And then Mark accuses Leroy of being dumb. He admits he knew Leroy, but he basically says he didn't have mental capacity.
Wow.
Mhm. And then here's Mark's kind of final thoughts, okay?
Mm-hmm.
Mark thought Herb may have targeted men that he himself, Mark Goodyear, danced or flirted with.
Okay.
Then Mark started crying and needed a cigarette break when they started talking about one man that died.
Hmm. Interesting.
And then Mark, you hear him say, why did you let me live? Oh, I hate you for that.
Interesting.
Mhm.
Like talking about herb.
Yes. Why
Okay.
did you let me live? Oh, I hate you for that.
Okay.
And
So maybe
then
that maybe a murder suicide pact.
could be. That's an interesting thought. I didn't even think about that.
Yeah.
Maybe it was a murder suicide and
And then he just ended up killing himself because he got overwhelmed.
that totally could be. So
Hmm.
then at one point, they show this at the end. I don't know at what point this happened. Mark is running up the stairs at the house and he says, I'm far too lazy to be a murderer. As of December of 2024, the case remains open.
Wow.
So he's still out there. Mark Goodyear's living his best life, talking about all his nonsense, being
I mean, they're
terrifying.
still investigating though, right?
I mean, not really. I mean, this is the thing that's really frustrating about this case. I think they're kind of, law enforcement's kind of done. I mean, at this point, it's really the coroner. I
Mm-hmm.
think law enforcement feels like it's so muddled and they only
Mm-hmm.
have so much evidence, and none of that evidence is tied to Mark. And now Mark's saying crazy stuff, but Mark's a little bit nuts, you know?
Right, right.
They don't know what to do with it. And so you have this coroner and this investigator who are still trying to work this case with very limited resources. And then you've
Mm-hmm.
got Mark Goodyear being Mark Goodyear.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think I have an update on where he is now, but I'm going to look just in case.
I didn't see anything when I was looking him up.
Yeah. I don't think anything's, I mean, he's just like living his life.
That's crazy.
So, final thoughts. How do people not know about this? This is one of my biggest questions. This is a gigantic case. It makes Dahmer look like a snowflake in some ways, just the sheer number of bones and everything else.
Okay.
How do we not know more about this? Obviously, we don't have a conviction, but like, of all the stupid crap we hear on the news,
I
all
know.
the, my a kitten went missing and blah blah blah, how
Yeah.
in the world
Well, I mean, there's a whole documentary on it.
now? But I mean, this has been brewing
That's
since
true.
96 and
Yeah.
Goodyear has been a mess for years.
That's a good question.
And they found 10,000.
I know. Well, that's what I was gonna say is like that's like I was kind of in my brain comparing it to the Idaho murders.
Uh-huh.
And I'm like, no, it's like they're both very gnarly.
Mm.
Maybe because I don't know if this is true or not. My brain's just exhausted and I'm thinking out loud. Maybe because they haven't caught them in action. Like with the Idaho murders, it was like present time.
Yes.
They're finding, they find this skull and it's a
Yes.
skull. It's not like a full-blown body. I
Yes.
mean, does that make sense? So maybe it's
Uh-huh.
because it's just been like they don't know when this started or when it ended.
Well, and they really stop. I just heard from somebody, I won't say who because I don't want to, it's somebody's livelihood, but I
Sure.
just heard from someone that the reason they can't close the John Bonet case, and it's from somebody like in the know, that the
Okay.
reason they can't close the case is because the suspect is no longer alive. And they don't tend to
Oh,
investigate things where it's a certain type of case closure
yeah.
that they have done internally,
Yeah.
but they can't make that public because it would be all the scrutiny then, et cetera, et cetera. I
Right.
still think it's that one weird family friend. So I was going to research. I haven't had time. I want to know if that one weird family friend is still alive. I think in this case, when Herb killed himself, I think law enforcement, with the resources that they have, yes, we want to let families know what happened, but this is a massive undertaking to do DNA testing on 10,000,
Right.
fragments of remains and try to find people through the missing person database, through all these things. They just don't have the manpower and the motivation to do it.
Right.
But with Mark Goodyear, some of the things he said, I'll be very surprised if they don't reopen this in a big way. Because
Yeah.
if I lost somebody in my family during that time in the 90s, I'm going to demand it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And if they get
One with
enough
how,
demand, maybe somebody will pick it up or fund it. Maybe somebody will fund it.
yeah, one how sketchy Mark is, and he's still alive.
Yes, any really wealthy people out there who are into true crime, maybe you could fund the DNA identification process. That would be great,
Yeah. Yeah.
you know, because the poor
Yeah.
families,
That's tough.
they haven't gotten any closure. And then you're wondering, imagine if one of your loved ones went missing during that time and there's all these remains and that you don't know if it's your person.
Mm-hmm.
So then you're left to kind of wonder. That's crappy
I
too.
know. Yeah, that's hard.
I know. So anyway, thanks for listening to that big, long, drawn out case. It's a lot.
It is a lot. Yeah. I mean, it's a good one though. It's very mind bendy, you
It's
know.
mind bendy. And I think for me, I have so much more awareness now just because of domestic violence work about
Mm-hmm.
the relationship dynamics. And
Mm-hmm.
that's why the power and control is interesting.
Yeah.
I felt myself getting like judo flipped every half hour because it was kind of like,
Yeah.
I think this person was kind of in charge. I think this person was kind of in charge.
Yeah. Yeah.
I've landed with Mark Goodyear. I really think Mark Goodyear, and again,
Yeah.
this is pure speculation, not a diagnosis. No one is asking my opinion.
Mhm.
But based on everything that I know and the way that he presented, it was
Mhm.
Silence of the Lambs creepy. Like, if
Mhm.
that presentation walked into my office, I'm going to feel some type of way
Mhm.
about that,
Mhm.
And so there's something
Yeah.
really wrong there,
Yeah,
you know?
my theory is that Herb was already a weird dude and then got in mixed up in a weirder situation and went with it
Yep.
and then was caught up too deep.
I think so too. And I think he may have actually been very scared of Goodyear.
Oh, for sure. Goodyear's terrifying. They're both a little offensive looking,
Listen,
but
Herb's scary. The
yeah,
mannequin.
they're both offensive,
Yeah, they're both scary.
but I think he was just I think he was good with his mannequins and then
Uh-huh.
he got into something that was a little bit deeper than himself,
Oh, I totally agree. I totally agree.
you know? Yeah,
So,
that's a
thanks
good
for
case.
joining me, friends. Watch the documentary if you are
Mhm.
super brave. Otherwise, just take my word for it.
Yes. And y'all, we have some good stuff coming. We're not doing
Woo.
spoiler alerts because Janine and I were hilarious.
Oh, yeah.
I don't I don't know if she's gonna love that I share this, but I'm gonna share it and we can take it out later if we need
Oh,
to.
yeah. I usually keep all your stuff.
We try to plan what we're gonna do each week. But sometimes, sometimes Janine was sick for like 10 days. Now I'm just on the struggle bus with
Oh
like
yeah.
exhaustion and emotions. And so sometimes we post our episodes at different times than we plan. But we really do have good stuff coming for you guys. We have some really good theories on really big cases that y'all know like a lot about, or you at least probably know
Yes.
something about them, but we have great theories come in and thoughts on these. So stay tuned as we continue.
Stay tuned. Just because Nat's having a baby doesn't mean we're slowing down.
Nope, she's kicking. She loves this.
She loves. She's a true crime girly too.
I know. She's like, we're good.
All right.
So
Well, thanks so much, you guys. And as always,
bye, forensic friends.
I'm Janine.
And I'm Nat.
And as always, thanks for listening and join us next week for more crime, psychology, and heart.